host of Disgraceland. I want to tell you about a new podcast that I think you're going to love. It's called About a Girl. It tells the stories of the women behind the musical legends, the ones who inspired, supported, and challenged them on their way to greatness. Each episode, host Eleanor Wells will give voice to one of these influential women who helped chart the course of musical history. About a Girl comes to you from Double Elvis in partnership with iHeartRadio and is executive produced by me, Jake Brennan. Listen to About a Girl on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
About a Girl is a new podcast about the women behind musical legends, the ones who inspired, loved, supported, and challenged these icons on their way to greatness. These are 12 incredible, influential women, without whom the landscape of popular music might be very different. It's hosted by me, Eleanor Wells, and executive produced by Jake Brennan of Disgraceland, 27 Club, and Blood on the Tracks. Subscribe now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Hurt Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Hurt at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Here we go, live in Los Angeles. This is the Herd, wherever you may be and however you may be listening. Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, FS1. It is a glorious Monday, 1 hour from now, where Colin was right, where Colin was wrong, and there is, as always, plenty of both. Joy Taylor, native Pittsburghonian, is joining me this morning.
Pittsburgh native, Yinzer.
This
was not a good weekend for me. Canes got destroyed by North Carolina.
Yeah.
I didn't hate the Dolphins' loss. It was like a good loss.
Yeah.
I'll give it a little
Not too bad.
moral victory. Not too bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, that Steelers game last night was a rough one.
So I feel like I've got to be a little bit of a Fraser Crane this morning, a little bit of a therapist for Pittsburgh. They've decided to turn on me all these years of supporting a great organization, and as a therapist, I occasionally give you the truth, and you yell and scream at me across the therapist room. Let's all take a deep breath. Last week, I compared the 11-1 Steelers to a team I love, the Patriots, to last year's 8-0 Patriots. And I said we were giving the Patriots last year and the Steelers this year respect and elevating them based on their history and our respect and their coach and their quarterback who's going to be a Hall of Famer and their brand. And they had earned our respect. But my job as a therapist is to be honest, go deeper, tell you things maybe you don't want to hear. And I said last year's Patriots and this year's Steelers, you start looking at those wins, and boy, it's a bunch of cruddy teams and very hollow. And when last year did we finally realize New England was a fraud? I remember that session. It was Sunday Night Football. Baltimore came to town with an energetic, dynamic quarterback and thumped the Patriots 37-20. And New England looked old and slow and heavy-footed and offensively outdated. It's like the calendar wasn't their friend. And last night, the Steelers were finally unveiled to all of you as this young upstart team with a dynamic quarterback, Josh Allen. Made the Steelers look old and slow and outdated. I'm sorry. Look at these numbers. Listen to them. 14 first downs, 47 rushing yards, 1 for 10 on third down, 24 minutes time of possession. Big Ben, passer rating of 65. This is not to say as your therapist there aren't qualities I admire about you. TJ Watt is virtually unblockable. And this is a great front office, and their problems are almost immediately solved in the following draft. But deep down, my client, they know the truth. Steelers, this is not a Super Bowl team. 3 straight weeks, under 20 points. You don't scare anybody. You don't even really believe in your running game yourself. And oh, by the way, New England last year did win more games after that thumping on Sunday night to Lamar Jackson. And the The Steelers do play the Bengals next week, and they will flex and look strong. But you know the truth. The Steelers cannot beat quality teams. And we also know this. Life evolves, we evolve, teams evolve. Steelers good early, Steelers unveiled late. Patriots last year good early, Patriots unveiled late. And the Patriot diehards, I mean, this is very common. They made excuses. And the Steeler fans this morning, what about our injuries? Outside of the Rams, the whole damn league's banged up. It's December. It's football. Everybody hurts getting out of bed this morning. And actually, the Steelers' defense is fine. It really is. But this offense, this is not a Super Bowl team. Third down, embarrassing. Run game, non-existent. Drop passes, once again. Identity, you have none. Big Ben is 31st in the NFL in yards per attempt. That is the opposite of the Steelers, who have always physically pushed you around and then had the courage at any time, anywhere to go deep and burn you. This is a BB gun offense. It's outdated. It's slow. And by the way, New England and Pittsburgh. New England last year, Pittsburgh this year. They win games. Nobody's saying Tomlin, Big Ben don't get to the Hall of Fame. Nobody's saying Belichick and Brady don't get to the Hall of Fame. Nobody's saying you'll never win a game. Nobody's saying we're all laughing at you. But this is why you go to a therapist, for somebody to tell you the truth. And this morning, Pittsburgh, the team you lost to, is a legit Super Bowl threat. They really are Buffalo. They got all the ingredients. All of them. And we all saw them last night. And you're not a Super Bowl team. Take a deep breath. It's okay. But at this point, this is just the honest, harsh truth. And painful today, solve potentially later, but Big Ben knows it, Tomlin knows it, you know it. Good team, not special. Wait till next year. Here's Big Ben.
When you look in the mirror and it starts with me, I need to play better football because the ball's in my hands every single play. And so when it's in my hands, I need to make the best decision. And right now, I'm not playing good enough football for us to win. But if I don't play good enough football, then I need to hang it up. But I still feel like I can do enough things to help this team win football games, and I'm gonna do everything I can to get us back on track.
All right, enough with being a therapist. Now let's talk about Jalen Hurts and Philadelphia. A lot of Pennsylvania stories today. So Jalen Hurts got the start, ran around, and won the game. So it's time for another edition of Let's Massively Overreact American Sports Media to a quarterback who runs better than he throws, and it's Monday, and he's going to change the NFL. Tim Tebow didn't, Kaepernick didn't, Taysom Hill's not, and Jalen Hurts is not. And Lamar Jackson's not. Unique, as we say, multiple times a year. It always works. Always. The Wildcat worked. It just rarely lasts. And last night, the Saints were on their heels. They didn't know what to expect. They kind of sat back and said, all right, here's a bunch of plays we've never seen. And unique works. And Jalen Hurts, yes, was fun. He gave them an identity. The play calling, it was kind of synthesized down to the very core of what he does. Doug Peterson's like, this kid can move. Let's move him. And it's fun. And actually, Philadelphia's defense seemed to respond. They played great. But can the media stop constantly overreacting to unique in the NFL? Jalen is unique. He was the runner more than a thrower, but certainly like Taysom Hill, capable of throwing. But in the NFL, you watched that game last night, the Saints sat back. Let's be honest. Philadelphia didn't really know how their offense would work last night. They didn't know. So the Saints didn't know. And as I said last week, even if Jalen Hurts wins, it doesn't solve the bigger issue. You backed up a Brinks truck for Carson Wentz, and you owe him $100 million plus. Last night doesn't solve that. Maybe you can move him, maybe you can't. And here's the thing, though. With all young quarterbacks, and especially the quarterbacks that appear to be very fond and very special at the art of running, It's a series. It's a progression. It's a series of boxes. So last night, Jalen Hurts checked the first. Can you win games? Check. You can win a game. The next box, can you win several games? Looks like you could. Can you win playoff games? So last night, the first box is checked. He can win a game. Now it's several and playoff games. Since the 1970s, something has always been true in the NFL. You got to sit in the pocket and throw to win. To win big. I mean, big. Conference championships, second round, Super Bowls. And that's just the way it is. Unique can work briefly, but you got to sit and throw the football. Last night, Jalen Hurts averaged about 5 yards a pass attempt and completed like 57% of his throws. Again, it's the first game. The timing could not have been great. First time he's practiced as a starter all week. But congrats to Jalen Hurts. It was funny. We were watching Taysom Hill and Jalen Hurts. You're kind of watching a mirror image of each other. We're not sure if they're going to be franchise game. I thought the game was wildly entertaining. And Jalen added energy. I do believe Philadelphia feels like last night anyway, yesterday, it's a little bit of an identity. It's a little bit of an identity. And I'm happy for the kid. But there are still many boxes to check. Here's Doug Peterson.
Is Jalen your starter next week? And if so, what will the challenge be, now that more tape is out on him?
I'm gonna enjoy this one. I'm gonna go home and relax and be with my family tonight and enjoy this win and get ready for the week.
All right, let's just give the coach a break, go home, hang out with family, watch the film. Congrats to Jalen, and for that matter, Taysom Hill. But let's not go crazy. Our job is to add a little bit of context to this. Of course, the Saints were a little lost. They'd never seen it. They didn't know it was coming. They were on their heels. And Philadelphia played with a purpose and identity and real defense. Good for the Eagles. Good day for the Eagles. All right, coming up next. We talk about this. Great losses and bad wins. I got to tell you, I thought the worst win yesterday, and there's an unsolvable problem with Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I would wake up this morning and feel about as bad as you could with a win. That's coming up.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd, weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Do you ever think about how you're gonna die? I think I'm going to choke to death, specifically on a Cool Ranch Dorito.
I'm definitely slipping in the shower. I'm for sure gonna die taking a selfie. Anyway,
Hey, I'm Gabby,
I'm Taylor. I'm Nika.
and we're the hosts of a new podcast called
Cadaver Gals. We're just three fun and flirty gals talking about all the fun and flirty ways that people expire.
Like how 3 people died because of a poodle.
And how you shouldn't trust your ex-boyfriend to help you get rid of a body.
We'll also find out about all of Nika's boyfriends.
That is untrue, and we will find out that Taylor's a horse girl. And Gabby is...
The best one.
Okay, Gabby. Basically, this podcast is kind of like Sex in the City if they only talked about dead people. Join us as we laugh, but mostly cry, in the face of death. We'll also learn how to grow as people through the power of friendship.
So listen to Cadaver Gals for your weekly dose of chaos.
Cadaver Gals is a production of School of Humans and iHeartRadio. New episodes out on Wednesdays.
Listen to Cadaver Gals on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Eleanor Wells, host of the new podcast About a Girl, and I want to tell you some stories. David Bowie, Freddie Mercury, Paul McCartney, Bob Marley, Jim Morrison. You probably know these names, but this is not really about them. This is about the women behind the legends, the ones who inspired, loved, supported, and challenged these icons on their way to greatness. Women like Angie Bowie, Mary Austin, Jane Asher, Rita Marley, and Pam Carson. Each episode, I'll give voice to one of these women who have remained muted in the shadows for far. Too long. These are incredible, influential women, without whom the landscape of popular music might be very different. About a Girl is executive produced by Jake Brennan of Disgraceland, The 27 Club, and Blood on the Tracks. Subscribe now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Discovery Plus, starting next year, U.S. only. New streaming service. Exclusive originals at Discovery Plus and stuff like the Food Network, HGTV. So, Tampa won. Yippee. But I think at this point, Tom Brady's standards are above winning games. That game against Minnesota looks a lot different if Minnesota had a good field goal kicker. It would look a lot different. Totally different. Off a bye, Tampa Bay had 17 first rounds, 20 minutes time of possession, and Tom Brady completed 15 throws. Off a bye against an average Minnesota defense that average quarterbacks have run up and down the field on. Listen, what I'm about to say is a reality. It's not a criticism. It may be viewed as both. Everybody loves Bruce Arians. He's a great guy. I mean, they asked Freddie Kitchens, remember the Cleveland coach, when he got the job? He worked with Arians. What do you remember about him? And he honestly said, he makes the best cocktail. I mean, it's funny. I don't want to hear that. So Bruce Arians retired once. Why? He was tired of the long hours. He went to CBS to be a broadcaster. He did a good job, but he never really fully committed, and it showed. And then he goes to Tampa, and he has built the biggest staff in the league to limit the grind. It's starting to show. If you look in the NFL, every other weekend you're facing a Kyle Shanahan, a Sean McVay, a young Matt LaFleur, a Cliff Kingsbury, a Joe Judge, a Brian Flores. Young, energy, relentless, 18 hours a day, living it, breathing it, consumed by it. Consumed by it, and the energy to handle it. If you're not putting in 18 hours a day, you don't get to see your kids' recitals. It's Zoom meetings. You're going to get exposed really fast in tech and even faster in the NFL. Tampa Bay has one impressive win all year. They've plateaued. They're fine. They're not bad. But they're not cleaning up their stuff. They're not cleaning it up. This is why they're inconsistent. I know Tom Brady's obsessed, but I also know Bruce Arians has retired once, has the biggest staff. I saw the broadcasting thing. Doesn't mean he can't coach. But this league, there are just certain positions that are built for young guys. That's too many hours. He's got 5, 6 assistants on the offensive side, and he's an offensive guy. He's got layers of different offensive coaches. I watched yesterday. They still don't have an identity. All Tampa is a collection of talented players. They got a country club feel. And the Buffalo Bills are guys that are playing on a public course, that want to get to the country club, that are hungry to get to the country club, that are putting in the hours to get to the country club, that are sacrificing to get to the country club. But the Bills are on that public course, and those teams on that public course, they are just putting in hours, chasing and chasing. Mike Evans started his career. His first 6 years in his career, he had 6 straight 1,000-yard seasons. With Josh McCown, with Mike Glennon, with Ryan Fitzpatrick, with Jameis Winston. He's not close there with Tommy. Come on now. You see this. Like, it's not a shot at anybody. It's a reality of what they are. Off a bye. It's a lot of talk. It's a lot of chatter. It's a lot of country club stuff. I just don't see the edge here at all. I thought it was an unbelievably startling win. If the Vikings just have a field goal kicker, this game looks completely different. Here's Arians after.
I think games dictate how much you run it. What's the score at the end of the third quarter? And, we were leading, so it leads to more runs. And Rojo ran really, really well, especially that last drive. And we wanted to set up some play action. Didn't hit it as many as we hoped. But, that when asked early this week about our identity, I think we just showed our identity. We can do any damn thing we want to do.
Then why don't you? Off a bye. I've seen Andy Reid's teams off a bye. They got issues? They cinch them all up. I've seen Sean Payton's teams with chaos and backup quarterback and off a bye, and they cinch that stuff off. I've seen Sean McVay's team off a bye, and they clean stuff up. This should be easier. You got Brady. You're the most obsessed football player of all time, and off a bye. You lose that game if the Vikings have a field goal kicker. You do. Enjoy the news.
Turn on the news. This
NFL was looking like an upset there for the first 5 minutes.
Boy, I tell you what, there is Miami's first 5-6 minutes. Almost every game I've seen this year, they give quarterbacks fits. I mean, Russell Wilson, not just every guy. That first 5 minutes, first 7-8 minutes, Mahomes was. I mean, he was struggling.
No, they're gonna come out ready to go. They overcame a 10-point early deficit to the Chiefs and 4 turnovers to beat the Dolphins 33-27. 3 of those 4 turnovers were interceptions thrown by Patrick Mahomes, who had his first multi-interception game in the regular season since 2018. So, I mean, I think that stat alone is very reflective of what this Dolphins defense is.
Yes.
Like, they do cause turnovers, and Patrick Mahomes is not someone that throws interceptions. He does not turn the ball over. He also took a 30-yard sack, which is the longest sack since 2015. It was so bizarre. Like, I was like, I had to watch it again. I was like, what is he doing? Because this is not what Patrick Mahomes does. Like, he doesn't make mental errors. It was so weird.
Isn't it amazing what great defensive coaching does to even star quarterbacks?
Yeah.
You go back, Belichick against Peyton Manning. I mean, Mahomes is a wizard. Those first 2 or 3 series, he was making mistakes he has not made in a year against anybody.
And that's like, I mean, we lean so much into offense. Like, that's all we talk about, that's all we focus on, the offensive numbers. Like, if you have a great defense, so we'll mention it in passing, but you can really see, I mean, the Dolphins are not as good of a team as the Chiefs.
And they're also missing their top 3 running backs and Kyle Van Noy. When the story came out right before the game that all 3 running backs were out, I literally tweeted this. It's like, okay, I'm 0-1 in Blazing 5. Like, that's not a game you can win. A rebuilding team missing a key component to keep Patrick Mahomes off the field. They're all out. And I'm like, the fact that it was that close, if in Miami today, I'm like, I feel unbelievable about my football team.
No, I do, because, and I'm not a huge moral victory person, but I do think that the process and development is very important, especially in a young team.
Yeah.
So that's why I didn't think that it was the right choice to keep Fitzpatrick in, even if it meant that they were going to win games, because it doesn't serve you in the long run, and you're not ready to win a Super Bowl right now.
Yeah.
So if you were every other position on the field and everything that was going on was positioned, you could win a Super Bowl. You just have to have a quarterback that can win you some games. Okay, then maybe not see what Tua has this year, but that's not the situation the Dolphins are in. I thought they played a game against the Chiefs that was respectable, and the defense was unbelievable. Like, he gave him fits, and you'd never say that about Patrick Mahomes. They had 3 sacks, 7 quarterback hits, and 4 first turnovers, including that sack.
I'm so excited for Miami's future. The NFL is better. When the Bears are good, the Niners are good, and Miami's good. They really are.
I love it. So, Washington jumped into first place in the NFC East with a 23-15 win over the 49ers. They didn't score an offensive touchdown and lost Alex Smith to injury in the first half, but the defense picked up the slack, scoring 2 touchdowns in their 6th win of the season. Now, they've now won 4 straight, and they control their destiny in the division. So they are at top of the NFC East at 6-7. Giants obviously lost yesterday, so they are 5-8. Eagles 4-8-1, and the Cowboys are 4-9. The rest of their schedule is not easy. They have the Seahawks next week, then the Panthers,
Win.
and at the Eagles. So the Giants' remaining schedule is not any easier. They have the Browns, at the Ravens, and then against the Cowboys.
Well, here's the good news. We know Miami found the right coach. It looks like the Giants did and Washington did. Ron Rivera's a good fit.
He's had an unbelievable season.
He's battling cancer, the quarterback chaos, and they're going to win this division. And by the way, they could end up going 500. If you look at their schedule, it's realistic to think they're going to be an 8-8 team. That is
remarkable.
That is. I mean, coach of the year, you could say Kevin Stefanski. Ron Rivera's got to be on your ballot. He's got to be somewhere on your ballot.
And they have a star in Chase Young. So you didn't get your quarterback this year. Alex Smith, it's a calf soreness or something in his injured leg. You know you're not going to move forward with Dwayne Haskins, even though he played a nice game yesterday. You get the quarterback and you're set. Like, you have to feel great if you're Washington. And I wasn't sure what this team was going to be this year. He's definitely got to be in the Coach of the Year conversation. So Kevin Durant returned to the court for the first time since June of 2019 this weekend.
Internet freaked out.
They did. I don't know why, because, I mean, he's clearly coming back this season, but he shot 5 or 12 from the field, 15 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists in his Nets debut, and after the game, he said it felt good to get back out there.
I was anxious, nervous. I visualized this moment for so long, 9-10 months of just thinking about how it would be this, next phase of my career, you know what I'm saying? So and I felt like I was just chomping at the bit. I was going through it, so to go through this felt solid.
I'm really happy for Kevin Durant.
I think, I gotta be honest with you, I think we underestimate, as media and fans, you come off an injury, you can do all the practice you want, but you can't tell me, I don't know if I think how hard it would be. I mean, if you've ever had an injury.
Yeah.
I remember Tom Brady off his injury. The entire year, you could tell.
No, it's terrifying.
He didn't want anybody near his legs.
I don't play professional sports. I tore my ACL. It took me 3 years to really feel comfortable just running again.
So
It's a huge mental hurdle to get over.
I mean, it's like you need. I would imagine that Kevin Durant would employ like a therapist occasionally to talk about not thinking about screwing your leg up.
I don't know how you don't, because physically you know you're ready. Like, you've gone through the therapy, you've gone through the training, you've been out there practicing. You know you're physically ready, but it's terrifying, especially if you're. I mean, think about Clay. Like, he just got back from an injury and now he's injured again. Like, that is an exhausting process to go through, to trust your body again, and then you're away from what you do for a living. Like, if we tear Achilles or ACL, we can hobble in here and do what we do.
Kevin Durant,
they can't do that.
Scores so easily.
I'm so happy to have him back in the league.
So's the league.
Such a fun season. Kyrie Irving also hadn't played since February, had 18 points and was 7 of 9 from the field and 4 assists, and he did not speak to reporters after the game, so we'll see how long that goes for.
Joey with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Peter Schrager, Fox Sports, great reporter for the NFL. Good Morning Football 2, opposite of us some days. Joining us now, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing. Yinzers are all mad at me. Pittsburgh's furious with me, and I've said before, there's many components. I respect the heck out of the Steelers, but they do remind me of the Patriots, Schrags, a little last year, where they played Baltimore on a Sunday night game and against Lamar, and boy, New England looked slow-footed, and I watched Josh Allen and the Bills last night with Pittsburgh. I'm like, okay, that Lamar and Josh Allen guy, I think the Steelers look good, but not special. Is it fair?
It's more than fair. Look, TJ Watt was amazing last night. I was watching him and Darrell Williams go at it. TJ Watt is the real deal. He's fantastic. Minka Fitzpatrick's great. They've had a lot of injuries. Bud Dupree is a really good player. Devin Bush is a really good player. Highsmith left last night. Then you look at the running game, it's non-existent. They couldn't get it going. And, hey, you want to do those short passes and then hope that those short pass wide receiver screens are going to work? You might want to catch the ball. And it's, Pittsburgh fans are so sensitive because I get it too, Colin, because I told Cam Hayward on a different show that I thought the Bills were going to win, and Bills were going to win by an easy margin. And that led to, everyone in hysterics in Pittsburgh. Sorry, this team does not look like a team that's going to compete with the Chiefs or the Bills or the Colts in the coming weeks unless they get healthy, unless their receivers can catch the ball. I'm watching Deontay Johnson here. He's got the most drops in the league per Pro Football Focus. Eric Ebron could not catch a ball in the last 2 weeks. Sorry, when your team is not playing well and looks sloppy in December, that's not a good thing. It doesn't usually just click and start working again. It's fair to be off on the Steelers right now. They don't look good, and they certainly don't look like they're going to win any games against any worthy competitors late in the season.
I said the Buffalo Bills, the Buccaneers feel like a country club team, and the Bills feel like the public course guy that wants to be a member of the country club. I think they're totally legit. And I'll say this, it may be the best coach team in football. What they have done with Josh Allen in the last 18 months, I mean, Joey and I were talking about this morning. 18 months ago, I'm like, this guy, I would never let him throw. He's terrifying. I think they're after Kansas City. I'm not even going to say after Kansas City. I think they're complete. I think they're completely legit. Your thoughts?
I know. I think the Chiefs would like to see any other team but the Buffalo Bills right now. They're humming. They are humming. And it's not just a one-week deal. I mean, you go back, if they don't have the Hail Murray happen, they're winners of 6 straight games.
Yep.
And last night, they were not good in the first half on offense. And you start to feel the ghosts of years past with Josh Allen. He threw a bad pick, and you're like, and they come out in the third quarter. and he goes Diggs, Beasley, Gabriel Davis, Dawson Knox. He completes 11 passes in a row in wintry weather, like it was sleeting out there, and he's throwing darts. I tell you, this Josh Allen, he has had his moments where you wonder, all right, can I trust this guy? In the last month or so, I'm done questioning it. He is as good as any other quarterback under 30 outside of Mahomes. I might take Josh Allen. Forget might. This is what we're doing. We're on the herd. I would take Josh Allen over Deshaun Watson. I would take Josh Allen over Kyler Murray. I would take Josh Allen over Joe Burrow right now if I'm building a team. He is that dialed in, and he's had the experiences of 2 years, ups and downs, where you feel like he's fully blossoming. I love watching this kid throw the ball, and I love watching him lead his team. They really believe in him. Colin, the Chiefs are the best team in the AFC and the NFL right now. The Bills might be a close second.
Yeah. I look at Jalen Hurts, and my feeling is it was fun. They had an identity. They're watchable. I think it was kind of the same team playing each other. Obviously, the Saints are better, but it's this kind of unique quarterback that can do things the person they replace can't. I don't know what it looks like in a month. Maybe Taysom Hill does solve the Breeze retiring issue. Jalen Hurts, if is good, still doesn't solve we have a ton of money to pay Carson Wentz issue. Wrap a bow on what you saw with Philadelphia, what your sources say, what it means this morning.
Yeah, I speak to a lot of folks in Philly, both in the week leading up to the game and then last night after the win, which they were all ecstatic for. What Jalen Hurts was able to do yesterday was not only lift the team and give a new energy, he was able to kickstart the running game, which has always been a strength for Philadelphia and just wasn't working with Carson Wentz. So Hurts goes for 100 yards rushing, only the second rookie to ever do that in his debut since Lamar Jackson, or the only other one is Lamar Jackson. And then Miles Sanders showed up for the first time all season. We were wondering where Miles Sanders is because the offense can run the ball now. It's mobile. Is he the long-term answer? I don't know. But for the short term and for the near future, I sure think Jalen Hurts, Philly was watchable. They were watchable, and they were up in this one, and Jalen Hurts brought a different juice. This kid's played in big games before. We know his college career is very decorated and the Heisman finalist and all that. But Carson Wentz was leading a flat Eagles team that had zero running game. Jalen Hurts led an inspired Eagles team that suddenly had 200-yard rushers against the number one defense in the league. Got to think Jalen Hurts is the quarterback for at least the next couple weeks and most likely the remainder of the season. Off season, we'll deal with that then. But like you said, Carson Wentz do $25 million no matter what by the Eagles next year, and a $60 million cap hit for the Eagles on their salary cap.
We never want to overreact on Monday. The Saints lost to the Eagles last week. The Giants shocked the Seahawks. We've seen the Raiders beat Kansas City. I say this about parenting: the days are long, but the years fly by. And in the NFL, Sundays are crazy, and then the season's kind of predictable when it's older. So let's not overreact. But I will say this: that tonight feels substantial with the Cleveland Browns. So to me, it feels substantial. So we had two teams last week, Schrags. The Giants upset Seattle. Young coach, young team. They laid an egg yesterday. The Bills had a huge win last week. Niners, they did not lay an egg. I feel like Cleveland is going to be the tiebreaker. Huge franchise win last week. What do we expect from the Browns tonight?
I'm not kissing your butt when I say this. No one's better at doing this. You set the stage so well because you're right. You have those two teams and you have the pro and the con. You've got the Bills and you got the Giants where you're like, the Browns, to me, it's not just this week, Colin. They're on prime time next week on Sunday night. So you now have a 2-week span here, 6 days, where you've got Monday night against the Ravens, and then a Sunday night game that NBC flexed into for week 15. Do you know what that means? That means you are a marquee team. Do not lay an egg. Please don't lay an egg. Don't be the same old Browns. And yet the Ravens ran all over them week 1. The Ravens looked a little better last week against Dallas. Yep. The Ravens had a bad strain of COVID that they're now finally getting out of the haze of that. I don't know what to expect. I'm not making a prediction as far as win-losses. I just think that this is the biggest Browns game in maybe 20 years.
Yes.
And Colin, you set the stage perfectly. And if they lose, everyone's going to fly for the bandwagon. They're on Sunday night. And if they lose twice to the Ravens and the Giants, well, then we are in the same old Browns territory, and we're talking about whether or not they're even making the playoffs. A huge game tonight, especially against a division rival that's just beaten up on them over the last few years.
I know, it's getting cold, and it's all these Northeast games and these Clevelands and Baltimores. The sport just keeps giving and giving and giving to us. Schrager. He's also got a New York Times bestseller, Out of the Blue. He's on our Fox NFL Kickoff, a rising star, is a star. We absolutely love having you on the show, buddy. Thanks.
You're the best, Colin. Thanks for having me on a Monday.
You bet. I'll give you my prediction on the Browns tonight and what I expect, plus Colin right, Colin wrong. And also, are we sure the Chiefs are the best team in this league? Something happened yesterday, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure. We're paying attention to it. That's coming up.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
You're going to come into a new season of joy and fulfillment like you've never seen. Hi, I'm Joel Osteen. I have a daily podcast where I talk about overcoming obstacles, accomplishing dreams, and becoming all you were created to be. You were made for more. You have new levels in you. There are seeds of greatness waiting to spring forth. You can't think negative thoughts and live a positive life. And on my daily podcast, I'll help you get your mind going in the right direction. You may have had some disappointments in the past, but this is a new day. Chains that have held you back are being broken. Doors are going to open that you never dreamed would open. Now do your part. Keep feeding your hopes, feeding your dreams. Don't use your energy to feed your history. Use your energy to feed your destiny. It's inspiring, uplifting, and encouraging. I think you'll like it.
Listen to the Joel Osteen Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, this is Bowen Yang here, and if you're as excited as I am about the upcoming 4th season of Search Party on HBO Max, then you'll want to tune in to Search Party, the podcast. I'm sitting down with the creators and stars of the dark comedy. To delve deeper into the disturbing world inhabited by Dory, Drew, Elliot, and Portia. And to help us discuss Search Party's most prominent themes, we're inviting a very special celebrity fan to join each chat. Folks like Paul Scheer, Vanessa Bayer, Busy Phillips, Taryn Killam, and Carrie Brownstein, among many others. I couldn't be more excited to talk with these folks about one of my favorite shows on TV. So join us as we review classic moments, share behind-the-scenes anecdotes, and analyze the complex characters and unpredictable plot lines that make the series oh so much fun. Search Party Season 4 comes to HBO Max on January 14th, with Seasons 1 through 3 available now. Meanwhile, subscribe and listen to Search Party, the podcast, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Holiday season is here. It felt like the holiday season last night at my house. Can you be addicted to oatmeal raisin cookies? I'm going to ask somebody on that. Because the thing is, I don't eat cookies unless you make them for me.
Yeah.
And then if you put them in front of me, I'm mostly a disciplined person. There is something about the combination of oatmeal and raisins. I can't stop. I've had 2 this morning. I can't stop.
You had 2 this
Big,
morning?
big, huge, gigantic, not healthy, not even interested.
Oh my God.
I can't stop it. I could have 4 more. It's a problem. Okay, so, we say this. There are bad wins. I thought Tampa's win is concerning off a bye. And there are concerning, and then there are losses that you kind of feel good about. Like, okay, we're getting there. So Kansas City, I got very lucky. I won this in Blazing 5 in the backdoor cover. Got very lucky. But in the last 5 days, Kansas City is not dialed in. This is concerning. In their last 5 games, now this is a gambling thing, but it does translate to real football. They're 0-5 against the spread. What is that mean? That if you look at the numbers, the people who do this, the Fox Bet, the professionals who do this, they're underachieving. They're not playing up to who they are. And 5 straight one-possession wins over not a lot of great teams. Yesterday's a prime example. Miami was missing their 3 best running backs. They had 3 rookies playing on the offensive line. They're scout team guys. Their wide receivers were Mac Hollins and Lyndon Bowden and Jalen Grant. They got 370 yards. They got more first downs than Kansas City. They won time of possession against Kansas City. You're talking about Tua, hadn't played football for a year and a half, has a handful of starts, was benched, they bring him back. 3 rookies on the offensive line. Your 4th or 5th best running back. Devontae Parker's your best receiver. I don't think he played in the second half. This should have been over. This is one of those. This is the Jags yesterday. That's what it should have been. And the last time the Chiefs beat somebody by more than a touchdown was the Jets. And you saw the Jets yesterday. By the second series, the game was over. So I look at that yesterday. I don't know how it was that close. I do not believe this morning Kansas City is the best football team in America. I do not. They should be. They could be. They maybe be. They're not. That's not the best football team in America. Giving up 370 yards to 3 rookie offensive linemen, running backs that probably should play in another league like XFL, CFL, or something FL. And it was, in the end of that game, once again, it got kind of uncomfortable. So it's not a knock on him. It's just a reality of, I don't think Kansas City is buttoned up. Now, we do have a history of certain teams flipping a switch, but a lot of times, like the LA Clippers, you can't, right? Like, most of the time, electric teams can flip a switch. Not all the time. A couple years ago, the Golden State Warriors, in my opinion, were down 3-2, would have lost to the Rockets if Chris Paul doesn't get hurt. They could not flip the switch. They just got comfortable with winning. Offense was too easy. They got into a series with an energized team that matched up well, the Rockets. And if Chris Paul didn't get hurt, Houston won in that series. The other thing is, I want to talk about the Cleveland Browns because they played tonight. Again, so the Giants came off a huge win with a young coach and a young quarterback laid an egg yesterday. And then Buffalo, young coach, young quarterback, played great last week. They had a big game yesterday and looked terrific, at least in the second half. So here's Cleveland. Cleveland last week went to Nashville, beat the Titans. To me, it felt like the biggest win for Cleveland in 10 years. I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but it felt like a big win. So now tonight, how do you react? This goes back to Trent Dilfer always told me this. Everybody reacts to losses the same way. The NFL, how do you react to wins? Some guys, it's just too much. And then let me start with this. I won the Baker Mayfield argument. He's not a number one pick. The reason I like Cleveland tonight, and I do like them close, is because they're Kevin Stefanski's team. And how do I know that? They don't talk. They're mature. They're cerebral. They're grown up. And Cleveland, I predicted last year they'd be kind of a mess. They were. I didn't buy into Freddie Kitchens or the GM John Dorsey. This year I predicted they're a playoff team, and it looks like they're going to win 9-10 games. I like Cleveland tonight. And the reason I like them, they're not Baker Mayfield's team. They are Kevin Stefanski's team. And what's interesting about tonight is that when you play divisional games, it really shows you who you are. Because they know your personnel and you know theirs. And nobody's fooling anybody. Everybody knows the other guy's playbook. This is going to come down to intelligence, emotional discipline. These are all the things we've worried about Cleveland. We've never worried about Cleveland's talent. That is not the issue. Tonight, divisional games come down to emotional maturity, emotional discipline, intelligence, guile, all the little stuff that wins games. And Baltimore historically has been really good at all the little glue stuff. So a divisional game really either unravels or exposes you. A win tonight by Baltimore, I don't care if win tonight by Cleveland, I don't care if it's in triple overtime, says a lot more than a win over even a team equal to Baltimore out of division. To play a division rival and to beat them tells me this isn't. Everybody knows everybody's players here. Nobody's fooling anybody. Bama, LSU, y'all recruited the same players. USC, UCLA, you're recruiting the same players. You've seen all the tape. You know the plays. You play every year. It's different. This is not SEC versus Pac-12 or Big 10 against Big 12 or Patriots coming out west taking on Charger. No surprises here. All the little glue stuff is going to matter, and that's what we always doubt about Cleveland. I don't tonight because I think it's Kevin Stefanski's team, and I think he's on a short list of coaches of the year. So I can't wait. This is a great Monday Night Football game. And I'll tell you, the weather, apparently I read this morning, is just a bunch of nonsense everywhere. It's just mostly terrible. I'm sitting there last night, and I'm watching that game. It felt so NFL. Tonight is going to feel so NFL. There are games, yesterday Atlanta and the Chargers is just a bunch of chaos and interceptions late, and you're like, this is a circus. Tonight's going to feel so true to the NFL brand. It is just going to be tough and physical and running. And the game, you better watch it because it's going to be over in about 90 minutes. It's the top two rushing teams. They're going to eat the clock up. I think both teams will mostly take the ball into the quarterback's hands, run downhill, quick game. First quarter will be done in 20 minutes, and I'll take the Browns to win by a field goal or less. But Cleveland, as always, I got your back. All right, hour 2 on a Monday. Colin right, Colin wrong. In LA, it's the Herd.
Nearly 600 years, years after the invention of the printing press, the most important book in the history of the world has arrived.
That might be overstating things.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. It will change your life forever.
Well, that's not necessarily true.
Most scientists agree that Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, is proof that time travel is possible. Because that is the only way to explain how a book this impressive was possibly made.
What?
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, will regrow hair, whiten your teeth, and improve your love life.
That's just not at all right.
Well, the love life part, maybe, if you find someone who thinks smart is sexy.
Stuff You Should Know. An incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. Available now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com and everywhere you buy books.
Now that is true.
Ever wondered why there are two ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is stuff you should know. You Know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Become the most interesting person you know now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold.
We are back and black on the Black Effect Network. Hey y'all, it's Tamika D. Mallory and my son the General.
That's me.
And Street Politicians is the podcast for the culture. We will be breaking down social and civil rights issues, pop culture, and politics on our podcast every Wednesday. We will have special guests as well with local activists to join the show discussing political issues going on in their community. Listen to Street Politicians on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
That's right.
Hey, I'm Gabby.
I'm Taylor. I'm Nika.
And we're the hosts of a new podcast called
Cadaver Gals. We're just 3 fun and flirty gals talking about all the fun and flirty ways that people expire.
Like how 3 people died because of a poodle.
Basically, this podcast is kind of like Sex in the City if they only talked about dead people. Join us as we laugh, but mostly cry in the face of death.
So listen to Cadaver Gals.
New episodes out on Wednesdays.
Listen to Cadaver Gals on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for The Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Here we go, hour 2. All sorts of energy on a Monday live in Los Angeles. This is The Herd, wherever you may be. However you may be listening, Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, FS1. Big week. Anyway, Joy Taylor is joining me. Joy, weekend for me. I went skiing Saturday. It was unbelievably cold but fun. You?
A lot of time indoors, couch, finished The Undoing.
You love that show.
It was great. I watched the Schitt's Creek documentary.
How was that?
For your recommendation. I cried. It was great.
Oh, that's great.
It's such a sweet show.
It is a sweet show.
Also, you owe me money.
$100.
Yeah.
So, in fact, I have it, I should have. I have it in my wallet. I never carry cash, and strangely, I have $100 in my wallet.
Do you have Venmo?
I don't do Venmo.
Okay.
I don't trust it, no.
I just heard someone laughing.
Oh, I have a conspiracy theory in about 30 minutes. This one's got legs. You know I'm not conspiracy theory.
You are not, no.
This one has legs. This is delicious. All right, we call it Colin right, Colin wrong. I can't come on here every week and have big opinions and not be honest about sometimes I whiff. Here we go to Monday.
Where Colin was right.
Another winning week with Blazing 5. We told you Tennessee would be the blowout of the weekend. It was. We said Miami and the Bills would win. In fact, we like the Bills handily over Pittsburgh. And we also said of all the games to not bet money in my Blazing 5. Don't bet the Giants much. Just do a little bit. I didn't feel confident about that. I said potentially they'd be flat, and they were. By the way, on the year, we're now 1 game under 500. If the Browns win tonight, We are at 500 for the year, and we're hot back-to-back winning weeks.
Where Colin was wrong.
Got a little ahead of myself on John Gruden, Coach of the Year. Stop me if you've seen this before. Raiders start hot with Gruden and then melt. 6-3 to start. They've lost 3 of 4. Listen, that was just a mismatch in the octagon. You know, Indy is physical, and the Raiders are finesse. Recently, the Raiders' defense has given up 44 to the Colts and 43 to Atlanta and 35 to the Chiefs, and the Raiders have fired their defensive coordinator this morning. You can talk about schemes, but they've done a very good job to rebuild the offense. They've got terrific young offensive talent, better than average offensive line. They got to take some draft picks and rebuild the defensive front because that was just big brother pushing around little brother for 3.5 hours.
Where Colin was right.
The Steelers' record, I said, was very misleading. They were a very slightly better than average 11-2 team. They don't have a running game. They have to lead the NFL in short, irrelevant passes. They're bad on third down. They really don't have much of an offensive identity. And we see this all the time in the NFL. Bill Parcells said you are what your record is. You are in the standings. But that doesn't mean records can't be misleading. And when you watch this offense, what are they? I don't even know. I know what Buffalo is. Scary. What are the Steelers? Overrated.
Where Colin was wrong.
I'm going to take a wrong on the Patriots season. So I thought they'd be awful, and they're kind of good early, and I'm like, hey, they're kind of good, and I watched them Thursday, and they're awful, and I don't know what's going on with them. Nobody in the NFL on a Sunday can almost beat a good team and then not be able to compete the following Sunday. I've been the whole season. I mean, they're not tanking. I was wrong on that too. But, I mean, week to week, they are exactly the opposite of what New England has been for 20 years. You have no idea what you're getting. They're the most inconsistent team in the NFL, and I'm off my game with the Patriots.
Where Colin was right.
People in the media are constantly telling me we've got to have an extended college football playoff. Oh, stop it. Florida's number 6. They just lost at home as a 24-point favorite. Texas A&M's 5. They got crushed earlier in the year by Bama. There's never been in my life a number 5 team in college football I thought could play for the national championship. Not one time in my life. This year, Bama, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Clemson. Then there's a massive drop-off to Texas A&M. By the way, 6 through 9 are Cincinnati, Indiana, Iowa State that has 2 losses, and Coastal Carolina. Yeah, let's have an expanded playoff and have Bama open with Coastal Carolina. I wouldn't watch that if it was in my bathroom. Nobody cares. We don't need to expand it. 4 is probably double what we need by the end of a college football season.
Where Colin was wrong.
Boy, I thought Leonard Fournette was such a savvy pickup by Tampa. He was a healthy scratch yesterday, meaning he could have played. And they just scratched him. Shady McCoy is like 6 years older and looks like he's got much more quickness and a much greater burst than Leonard Fournette. He has 271 total yards all season. And, you know, Fournette's an interesting player. The number 1 high school football player in the country. He's never felt like he has this deep, resolute love for football. And he's just kind of disappearing. He's not as good as Shady. He's not close to Ronald Jones, and I was wrong.
Where Colin was right.
I always say in the NFL, unique always works. Tim Tebow won 7 straight games. It doesn't last necessarily, so yesterday Jalen Hurts came out. The Saints had no idea what they were in for. In the first half especially, they got caught flat-footed. Listen, Taysom Hill won his first 2 games. Tim Tebow won games. Lamar Jackson was the MVP. I think eventually you have to sit in the pocket and throw, but this is one of my themes over and over on this show. Since the 70s, you got to throw in the pocket to win. But if you come out with something new, including hiking the ball to a running back, the Wildcat, it will work for a while. And Jalen Hurts yesterday, I thought about taking Philadelphia in this game because I thought nobody knows what they're going to get. I mean, Philadelphia didn't know what they were going to get. And so, once again, unique works in the NFL.
Where Colin was wrong.
I thought Gus Malzahn, when he was hired, I said this at the other network, I'm going way back, I said he's going to end the Alabama dynasty because he's going to be Chip Kelly of the South. He's going to be an annoyance. He's going to run a contrarian offense, and it's going to be a big pain in the butt for Saban, who's obviously a better coach. Well, Gus Malzahn just got fired. He never really had any personality, so it hurt his recruiting. His teams were wildly inconsistent. He did beat Alabama 3 times, so he was a very minor annoyance, but he had 110 season. Auburn's a great, not a good, a great college football program, and today, just kind of an uneven mess. I thought he was going to be a consistent year after year annoyance, and he was just going to knock off Nick Saban late in the year, every other year, knock him out of the dynasty category. Instead, Gus Malzahn is something like the 33rd or 34th coach that's a victim to Nick Saban.
Where Colin was right?
I've been on this James Harden thing for years. He's a great scorer. That's all he is. Now, reportedly, he doesn't want to play with John Wall, or Chris Paul, or Russell Westbrook, or Dwight Howard, or Mike D'Antoni, or... He's not a leader. He's the world's best two. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of money in two. There's a lot of fun in two. Kyrie Irving didn't have to go to the arena in Cleveland and talk to the press. LeBron can do it. LeBron's built to be a one. LeBron is a one. Not like MJ was built to be a one. Scottie Pippen, by the way, didn't like the number one. Didn't want to deal with the media. Didn't want the big shot pressure. James Harden, now reportedly, he doesn't want to play with John Wall. Well, come on now. I mean, at some point, people tell you who they are. You gotta believe them, and Harden is telling you, I don't want all the ones. I want the one money. I want the one shoe deal. I want the one shots, but I want to be a one. All right, I'm fine with that. I'd like a little pay cut, but I'm fine with that. But we've been on this for years. People were saying MVP. Give me a break. Most valuable player. Valuable guys can play with other really good guys. Harden can't. Colin right, Colin wrong on a Monday. So I have I've said this. Joey and I joke about this. Neither one of us are conspiracy theory people. But Joy and I'm not going to get personal, have both had conspiracy theory people in our lives before. And I just don't believe in it. I think conspiracy theorists are people that are seeking attention. They're people that they don't feel society respects them. They're much smarter than everybody understands, so they have inside information that nobody else has. I've got some inside information that nobody else has, and I'd like to share it with you. No, we never cared about you before, and we don't care now. But there are occasionally things that you hear them, bubbling up, and you're kind of like, that is kind of crazy. And there have been, if you Google, a handful of conspiracy theories that have actually been true over the course. I do this about twice a year. I see one, and I go and I Google conspiracy theories that have been true. There's always a handful of them. But there is one in the NFL, and it is worth considering because the ramifications are massive, and one team could really ensure something great. That's all I'll say. About 30 minutes from now. Trent Dilfer is around the corner.
Want more Herd? The Herd streams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week within the iHeart Radio app. Search Herd to listen live or on demand whenever you like.
My name is Lowell Berlanti, and I created the podcast Prodigy to find the answer to a very complicated question. Can genius be created? I asked academics, researchers, scientists, and the prodigies themselves to gain a better understanding of intelligence, skill acquisition, and expert performance. So disregard all simple explanation. Because complex questions require complex answers. Listen to Prodigy every Thursday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Eleanor Wells, host of the new podcast About a Girl, and I want to tell you some stories. David Bowie, Freddie Mercury, Paul McCartney, Bob Marley, Jim Morrison. You probably know these names, but this is not really about them. This is about the women behind the legends, the ones who inspired, loved, supported, and challenged these icons on their way to greatness. Women like Angie Bowie, Mary Austin, Jane Asher, Rita Marley, and Pam Kersen. Each episode, I'll give voice to one of these women who have remained muted in the shadows for far too long. These are incredible, influential women, without whom the landscape of popular music might be very different. About a Girl is executive produced by Jake Brennan of Disgraceland, The 27 Club, and Blood on the Tracks. Subscribe now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This week, Derek Carr and the Raiders are fighting for a shot at the playoffs, but rookie sensation Justin Herbert and the Chargers are looking for the upset. Thursday Night Football, 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific on Fox, also available on NFL Network and streaming on Prime Video.
That's a good game. I'm going to take the Raiders because I think it means more. It's the whole season. They have a playoff shot.
Yeah.
they're just both flawed enough to. The end of that Chargers Atlanta game yesterday was the two franchises in the NFL, Joy, that throw away more games they win.
I felt like it was like the battle of who is more Atlanta.
Atlanta West, Atlanta South.
Yes, it was unbelievable.
It was unbelievable. Trent Dilfer, 15 years in the NFL, a Super Bowl and a Pro Bowl, head football coach, got to the state final Lipscomb Academy. He's now joining us from his beautiful home in the mountains. I know where it is. I'm not going to tell anybody. I love having inside information. So I want to talk to you about, not only did you play in Tampa, and I worked in Tampa, but their buys matter in this league. Andy Reid off a buy. Is Deshaun Payton off a buy? Not everybody uses the buy the same way. So Tampa comes off a buy, and I watched that game, and I thought, hell, if Minnesota had a field goal kicker, they don't win that football game. What I see when I look at Tampa, Trent, I see a collection of talent. I don't see it. I just don't see an identity. What am I missing with Tampa?
I don't think you're missing anything. I think they're a really good football team. I think they're going to get in the playoffs, probably win the first round, and get beat in the second round. Everybody's going to go, why didn't they win the Super Bowl? They got Tom Brady. It takes time, and I think you use the key word. I don't think they have their identity yet. Every week offensively, it juggles back between we're going to be spread one week, the next week we're going to use big sets and run the ball and play action. They need to settle on who they are offensively. Defensively, we know what they are. They're a blitz-happy defense. That works a lot of times, but there's also times that teams know how to gash that, so they need to settle into that a little bit. And they need to be more of a three-phase football team. When they were dominant earlier in the year, no sacks, no turnovers, dominant special teams. They've slid since then. I think they're a good team, not a great team.
So you can talk specifically to this. You played on some good teams, but you played on one unbelievable team, and that's Baltimore. And I don't remember the specifics of the season, but Kansas City's kind of got into a malaise, and this is gambling talk, but they haven't covered in 5 weeks, and the reason is they, defensively, they're not all buttoned up. So go back to your Baltimore season when you know you're great and you see all the alphas and you see all that. You watch the film and you know you're shutting teams down. Did you guys have a 3 or 4 week malaise where it's like, man, here comes teams we should beat. We just beat them earlier. Is it hard to be great?
I think it's hard to be great every week. Too often in the TV business, people want to talk about everybody's ceiling. The sexy, flashy thing to do is talk about the bells and whistles, the sizzle, the ceiling of a team in all sports. What matters in the NFL is your floor. How high is your floor? Can you win with C- football? And trust me, that Baltimore team, we had to absorb some D- quarterback play for myself. So we were able to win with playing C football. That's what I see with the Chiefs right now. They're kind of lollygagging around. Last week it was red zone. They were sneaky. This week they turned the ball over. One week they give up too many yards. They might not be great on special teams, and yet they still win. And a lot of these games they win easily or comfortably. Like you're like, they're not really ever going to lose this game. They're sloppy. They're not really sharp, and they still win. And I think that's the thing about the Chiefs. Well, I don't think they're vulnerable. I think their floor is so high that even when they don't play well, they have enough difference makers. They have the best player on the planet, Patrick Mahomes. They have a coaching staff that's hyper aggressive. As you saw yesterday, they're really solid on special teams. I think this is a team that can play B- football and still win the Super Bowl.
So I want to go to the Bills because you've been doing Elite 11 forever. So every time I bring up a quarterback in the last 10 years, you saw him at 16. And so the story on Josh Allen is small California town. Nobody offers him. You know, it's a kid. He doesn't fill out till later. I don't know what he looked like. He's probably a gangly kid with a big arm, small town, bad football league. Nobody pays attention. And all of a sudden, you watch the last 2 or 3 weeks, and you're like, outside of Mahomes, I think I'd build my franchise with that guy. When did you first get your eyes on Josh Allen of the Bills?
When he was at Wyoming, saw the talent, obviously. The raw horsepower just jumps off the tape, and then you get to meet him a little bit, spend some time with him. I was wrong on Josh Allen. I thought he would be a really, really good NFL quarterback in 3 to 5 years. I said, this kid's going to need some time. He's going to need to develop. He's got to get to the big stage. He's got to work on some technique things. He's got to stop throwing fire all the time and learn some touch. And all of a sudden, even last year, there were times like, wow, this is going to be one of the best players in all football. And right now, you're seeing it. I think there's a lot of things. Number one, you got to talk about him and how he was raised. If you ever drive through Fireball, California, you're going to realize really quick that there's really solid values. It's simple. It's about hard work, toughness. I think he has all those things. The people he surrounded himself with. I'll give Jordan Palmer a ton of credit. Jordan's kind of adopted him as a surrogate brother since he came out for the draft. It's really raised him in the NFL life, and then obviously his coaching staff at Buffalo has done an incredible job, just giving spoon feeding him what he needs each step of the way. And then this year, just saying, "Okay, Josh, it's yours, baby. We're gonna go get you a bunch of weapons and let you roll." This kid's a special kid, a special talent, and I think you're looking at a guy that's gonna be one of the better players in the National Football League for the next 10+ years.
Trent Dilfer joining us. Explain to me, I've seen this happen so many times, where the quarterback gets inserted in due to an injury or Carson Wentz isn't playing, and you put him in, and Philadelphia's defense played better. So explain to me how it works in a locker room. We think Wentz has more elite talent than Jalen, but they have an identity. You just watch and you're like, God, I've seen this so many times. Explain why it works.
So I think you have to, when you have this conversation, it can't be Wentz or Hurts. You can't say, well, if we're going to say good things about Jalen Hurts, we're saying bad things about Carson Wentz. I think Carson Wentz is a unique talent that's going through a really, really funky stage of his career. He needs a giant reset. He needs something dramatic to happen to get him back to where he was. So we're not saying bad things about Carson Wentz. But what Jalen Hurts brings you is that spark, hope. Hope in the NFL is huge. These guys' bodies hurt. They're tired. This year especially, where they're having to give up with all the COVID regulations. Just life is really hard at the end of the year in the NFL. And you're just clinging to hope. I need something. I need something to make me believe. And Jalen Hurts becomes that for the Philadelphia Eagles. Helps the run game. If you notice, they were what we call a nub formation, tight end, 3 receivers, shotgun, a lot of zone read, a lot of using Jalen Hurts as a threat in the run game. It changes up gap responsibility, so you gave him a spark in the run game. Big plays. You saw that he's a good vertical passer. He gave Alshon Jeffrey a chance down there in the red zone. He took some shots. So all of a sudden, you start doing things offensively that maybe you weren't doing with the other guy. But anytime you talk about the spark quarterback, the second quarterback, you also have to look at consistency and longevity. How long can this work and how consistent can you be with this guy? And I think that's what the Philadelphia Eagles have to figure out for the remainder of the season.
And finally, again, take me back to your career. So I use you all the time for this. You always told me years ago, everybody reacts to losing in the NFL the same way. They're angry, they focus in.
Your wife's ugly, your food sucks, nothing's good, you don't like your kids, your dogs, you want to get rid of them,
But winning is different. And some teams win, and they party all week, and they think they've arrived, and the next week they lay an egg. So last week for Cleveland was about as big a win as they have had in 10 years. And then tonight, it's a divisional rival. As you know, divisional rivals know your personnel. There'll be no tricks. You know exactly what Baltimore's going to do. They know exactly what you're going to do. What do you expect, and do you have an experience in your life where you were with a team that in one of these moments just wasn't ready to play?
Yeah, how you handle success is everything in the NFL, as you were saying. I think with this is a unique part of this game. Stefanski's an incredible coach. What he's done is amazing. Don't want to take anything away from it. Played for the Browns for 1 year, so I'm excited about what they're doing. I'm rooting for their success. This is his 13th game coaching the National Football League. So this is his 13th time he's had to have some between-game narrative, conversation plan for his team. John Harbaugh's 222nd. Now think about that. 13 to 222, and all the other elements that you've talked about. I'm on the Browns. I like the Browns. I think they win a playoff game. I don't just think they're a playoff team. I think they're good. To win a playoff game. But in this matchup, considering what you said, coming off the huge win, John Harbaugh's Baltimore Ravens being desperate, the pedigree that they have, the championship mindset they have, I like the Ravens this game for that reason. I think the longer the game goes, the more complex decision-making that's going to happen, and I trust John Harbaugh in his 222nd time of handling these complex issues in-game more than I trust the Cleveland Browns.
Crap, I got the wrong side. Seriously, I don't even know if I can... honestly, I just know I just picked the wrong side. That's it. I'm done with you, Dilfer. Now that move. That makes so much sense. Why couldn't I have talked to you before I put money on it? All right, Trent Dilfer in a beautiful mountain home somewhere undisclosed location. Great seeing you, and best to you and your family.
Thanks, brother. See ya.
Yeah, didn't that make so much sense? You're like, oh, yeah, of course. Of course.
You never know, though.
Yeah, the Steelers have been in those games a lot.
Yeah.
Did nothing. By the way, new streaming service. It's called Discovery Plus. The shows you love, exclusive originals, starting next year. New streaming service, Discovery Plus. U.S. only. Joy Taylor with the news.
Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
Well, a game we were all paying very close attention to yesterday was the Eagles and Saints, and Jalen Hurts led the Eagles to a 24-21 win over the Saints in his first game as a starter. He was 17 of 30 for 167 yards and a touchdown. He also ran for 106 yards, and he lost a fumble. And Doug Peterson announced this morning that Hurts will get the start. Again Sunday against the Cardinals.
Tell me he doesn't look like Russell Wilson running. It's the same arm mode. They look the exact same running.
I thought this was very exciting.
Yeah.
I know Philly's pretty much out of it. And, the Saints, that's not really a game you want to lose if you're the Saints.
No kidding. That was a big loss.
I thought it was very significant. I did not think that the Eagles were going to get this win because, it matters to the Saints to get that game. And it matters to the Eagles too, obviously, but, the Saints are the best of the NFC. They needed to get that game. I think it's very interesting, and I think there's a lot of repercussions from him going out there and getting that win.
There's sometimes in sports something happens to a league that just ensures its growth. One of the things that is so good for the NFL, how many of now that you've added athlete to the quarterback position, not just your classic drop back 6'5" guy, how many of these quarterbacks you throw out there for the first time and you're like, oh, they're going games. I mean, I've been watching this league long enough to know it used to be you had a good quarterback and then you had an old guy as a backup, kind of a wash guy, but you had him there because he could handle. Now, and it wasn't very exciting. When you went to a backup, you went to a backup. Now you go to a backup and it's Taysom Hill and it's Jalen Hurts and you're like, oh,
they might just take the job.
They may be better. What's happening with quarterback play, I watched UCLA. And USC is the bigger brand, right? UCLA, I watched the kid playing quarterback, and I'm like, nobody's talking about that kid. That kid's an NFL quarterback.
That was such a fun game.
It was a wild game. By the way, I was on a flight. I watched USC, UCLA. The guy in front of me had LSU, Florida. It was like having a media room on a plane. I had right in front of me, I'm like, I get the SEC game of the day, I get the Pac-12 game of the night.
Well, they have either at the Cardinals this weekend or the Eagles, and they're at the Cowboys, and then they have Washington. I mean, if he wins 2 of those last 3,
well, I think you absolutely at this point for Philly, you start him until he you just keep playing him. Just go. You saw he can play. We were worried about confidence.
And what do you do next year?
Well, then you figure it out next year. Today's problem, Joy, if you've got an issue in your life, you just get through December.
Let's get through 2020.
That's right.
That's fair. So the Cowboys Week 15 game against the 49ers was flexed out of Sunday Night Football in favor of the Browns-Giants. But Jerry Jones is still confident that his team is a major television attraction.
Make no mistake about it. I can tell you firsthand, the Cowboys are the premier draw there is out here in the television period. I'll be very candid with you. Some of the biggest ratings we've ever had have been on Sunday afternoon. And so that's not a bad strategy to put the Cowboys in a potentially lesser slot, i.e. prime time, and have more eyeballs watch the NFL.
Well, they will be next year. They're not today. Like yesterday, there were 2 games I didn't spend much time on. One of them was the Cowboy-Bengal game. And I can't remember the last time. The last time that happened is the Tony Romo got hurt year. I just didn't watch the Cowboy game. I mean, I watched everything yesterday. Carolina-Denver didn't have a lot of repercussions, so I didn't watch that much. I mean, I watched the highlights. They had it off to the right. Cowboys-Bengals, I saw plays only. I never gave it 8 minutes.
There's just down years in brands. The Cowboys are the biggest brand in all of sports. All around. around the entire globe. They're the biggest.
Yeah.
So they're going to be fine next year. But this year, they are not a draw. I'm with you. There was nothing interesting about that Bengals. Nothing. The Bengals don't even have Joe Burrow. Like, there was nothing interesting about that game yesterday. And it's not a reflection of the Cowboys as a brand or how they're run as an organization or anything. It's just, this is not the year.
Well, a few years ago we had, who was the Kobe's Lakers had about a 2-year stretch, not his last year, but the years before, and they just had a bunch of young, immature guys, and it was like networks didn't put on much. I mean, it was just like and you had Kevin Durant to the Warriors, and you just had more interesting other brand. I mean, Miami's a brand, and Boston's a brand, and
but there's some teams where they get hot, and then they kind of start to feel like, oh, like we're in that conversation. We're gonna be in prime time every single year, and then they have a down year, and it's like, no, this is who you still are as an organization. That's not what the Cowboys are. They're just not. There's nothing going on with them this year. They're 4-9. They're last in the NFC East, which is the worst division in football in decades. They're 21st in points per game. They're allowing the most points per game on defense. Like, this is not the year for the Cowboys. They'll be back next year, and I think it's going to be a very interesting and crucial offseason what they do moving forward. So you mentioned that Florida LSU game.
Crazy.
6th-ranked Florida suffered their second loss of the season, a huge upset by LSU. The Tigers were stopped on 3rd down late in the 4th quarter, which should have forced LSU to punt.
Right.
But Florida corner Marco Wilson ripped off his opponent's shoe and threw it down the field, drawing multiple flags and keeping LSU's drive alive. This led to a 57-yard field goal to give the Tigers a lead with 23 seconds remaining. Florida had a chance to tie it up. Forced overtime, but they missed a 51-yarder to give LSU the 37-34 win.
You know, I really hate this call. I really hate it.
Do you?
I know. You're not supposed to do it. But God, you're a 17, 18-year-old kid, and you get the shoe, and you didn't throw it at anybody. I hate it. I just hate the call.
Listen, I'm a troublemaker myself. But come on, you've got to have more composure than that. I mean, you just do. You do.
I know. You're right. But I saw it, and I was like, oh, God, that's wrong.
I mean, it's not the end of the world, but there's sportsmanship. Like, you can't do this. And look, all of his teammates just start mauling him as soon as it's done. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You cannot do that.
I know you can't. Listen, my kids have done things, and my kid once ran full speed at a nursery into a pile 7 foot deep of like mud where they had plants, and almost drowned. I had to save him. I had to jump in. I mean, it was like something out of Gilligan's Island or something. And I'm like, I was so furious, and I was like, oh, he's a kid. And I watched that, and I'm like, okay, he's not going to do that 7 years in the NFL. He's a kid.
No, I don't think he's undraftable because he did that.
No,
but you cannot do that. You can't do that. Like, you can't do it. You know you can't do it.
I feel terrible for him.
I feel bad for him, but it's a hard way to learn a lesson. We've all learned very hard lessons, right?
All right, Joey with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Okay, so I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Goulet, you... been with me a long time, and Joey, you've been with me 3 years. I laugh at conspiracy theorists. But I'm not going to do it right now. I'm going to take a break. I have one that you have to at least consider it. I'm not saying it's true, but you can't tell me somebody in one of these organizations hasn't thought, this is glorious. Because you can ruin a franchise next 10 years. That's next. That's called a tease, folks.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
You already know that The Challenge is the most heart-pounding competition show on television. But do you ever wonder how challenge competitors are selected or which challenges were too dangerous for TV? Well, you can learn all that and so much more on MTV's official Challenge podcast. Hosted by your girl Tori and me, Anissa, we're giving you the inside scoop on the brand new season of The Challenge. Let's go, baby. Listen to MTV's official Challenge podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Are you dealing with best life burnout, constantly striving for more, and quite frankly, over it? Maybe you just want more joy, peace, and laughter in your life now. Well then let's go. Welcome to your new favorite podcast, Hot Happy Mess, hosted by me, your girl, Zuri Hall.
Join us each week as we discuss dating, relationships, self-care, career wins and losses, and so much more. Oh, and moments like this. You know what? Sometimes the grass is greener on the other side because it's fake.
Well, that's why I mentioned muting. There are some people who will check you.
Oh, we got some petty people in our lives. I was crying by the water because I was happy.
And I do love a clear.
Wine will be spilled, laughs will be had, and a few tears might be shed. Messes will be made, but we're gonna find our magic in the middle of them. Don't miss new episodes every Monday. Find Hot Happy Mess on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
On the road so much during the holidays. CarShield.com, 10% off. Go to CarShield.com, code HERD, America's #1 auto protection provider. Over 1 million people have used CarShield. It's great to have you. It's the holiday season. We have a terrific Monday Night Football game tonight. Cleveland and the Baltimore Ravens. Dilfer likes the Ravens. I like the Browns. I think they're a better team since Week 7. Stefanski's a young coach, but I also think the Browns have the best offensive line in football, and I think at the end of football season, just saw that yesterday with the Colts. A lot of good offensive lines won yesterday. Buffalo had the better offensive line, could run the football against the Steelers. So I want to start with this. I don't believe in conspiracy theories. And as Joy often says, players do not tank. But we saw the Colts not play Peyton Manning that last year so they could get Andrew Luck. We know what happens in the NBA draft. You just sit starters, play guys. That's a tanking. You just play less talented guys. So the Jets right now, the #1 pick, and the Jags have the #2 pick. If they tie, the Jags get the pick. It's a strength of schedule tiebreaker. Without convoluted, I don't want to waste your time. The NFL goes to a strength of schedule thing. I think the easier one gets it, Jags get it. So the Jets can't win a game. If you look at the Jets schedule, they're going to lose the next 2 games. They're going to get crushed at the Rams and crushed by the Browns, who have stuff to play for. Then it's the Patriots. It's perfect. Belichick hates the Jets. Once was offered the job, turned it down. Hates them. He's already beaten and humiliated the Jets 100 times. The game has no. But he could easily say, I'm not going to play Cam because Cam's our starting quarterback next year. There's no reason to put him through that. We're going to give Jarrett Stidham a full week. That's all it takes. That's all it takes. Jarrett Stidham starts. Well, they're struggling with Cam. What's it going to look like with Jarrett Stidham? The Jets win the game. Ugly. John, you could even play the conspiracy theory music. And the Jets and Belichick doesn't have to face Trevor Lawrence for the next 5 years. Think about this division. I want to face Trevor Lawrence 2 times a year. I want to face Tua 2 times a year. I want to face Josh Allen 2 times a year. Hell no. Belichick is too competitive to what? Start Jarrett Stidham? That's all you're asking. You just say, listen, we're going to start Jarrett Stidham.
And none of those Jets players want to be a part of a team that went 0-16.
It's humiliating. The Jets will play to win. Maybe the organization won't. I'm just saying, you're Belichick. You want to face Josh Allen 20 times in the next 10 years. And then Trevor Lawrence 20 times. And Tua. Nobody in the NFL, including Belichick, who's won 43% of his games without Tom Brady, nobody wins in this league having the 4th best quarterback in the division. And they got too many wins to get one of the top guys this year. And nobody's going to do him any favors and give him a quarterback. I'm just saying. You start Jarrett Stidham.
It's not the craziest thing I've ever heard. There's some far more unrealistic conspiracy theories out there right now.
So here's, because a lot of people now, because I'm America's media icon, this will get talked about a lot. So what you do if you're Belichick, you do it a week early. You say, we're just going to play Jarrett so it doesn't look so premeditated. You play Cam 1 more week. If you lose, you just say, last 2 games of the year, we're going to give Jarrett Stidham a start. As a coaching staff, nobody's going to judge Belichick. So if they go to Jarrett Stidham as a starter.
Well, they have the Dolphins in Miami next week.
And Miami's going to win that game.
Yeah, they've traditionally struggled in that game.
And Miami's going to win that game. And I think they shut it down after that. Who do they have after that?
Bills.
And they're going to get routed by that. And so so I just say, I think what if they just say, because you don't want to start Jarrett Stidham against Miami and get blown out, because people say, okay, you got to play Cam. And you let Cam play against Miami, and then you say, we've made a decision. We're just going to go with Jarrett Stidham the rest of the way.
I don't hate it.
Don't hate it. It's not crazy. And by the way, it would just stick it to the Jets. I mean, it would just be a take.
Well, actually, I mean, besides the added bonus, I feel like the sticking it to the Jets is like the cherry on top. It's actually a very good strategy. Now, the consolation, like how far do they go down? Do they get the second pick in the draft?
Yeah.
So they're still getting Justin Fields.
Right, but let's be honest about this. Once a decade, you get a quarterback who's going to win regardless of the mess.
Yeah, I mean, that's how everyone feels about Trevor Lawrence.
Justin Fields could win with the right people, but you put him in Cleveland with Freddie Kitchens, Justin Fields is not going to win. So there's a difference between Luck, Elway, Trevor Lawrence. And this isn't one of these things where you get Mahomes and he's way better than you thought. Trevor Lawrence would have been the number 1 pick last year.
Right.
And probably the year before.
It actually kind of adds a little cover for Belichick, too, that they would still get Justin Fields. Because it's like, wow. I mean, they've got a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, the chopped liver.
I'm glad you asked that question.
Okay, okay. I do want to say this, though. When I watched Buffalo last night, it's so amazing how it lines up. They are the Steelers 13 years ago. The Steelers 13 years ago had a small college quarterback named Big Ben who was weirdly big, strong, mobile with a huge arm. Didn't watch him play in college. And they had this defensive coach from William & Mary named Mike Tomlin. They had a terrific offensive coordinator named Bruce Arians, who everybody in the league thought, he's going to get a head job. And they were a proud Northeast franchise. So now the Bills have this small school quarterback named Josh Allen, who nobody watched really in college. Their coach, Sean McDermott, he went to William & Mary too with Mike Tomlin. It is a proud Northeast franchise, and they've got this offensive coordinator who's going to get a head job, Brian Dable. I literally watched them last night. I'm like, and by the way, these guys have Stephon Diggs. Big Ben back then had a couple of great young receivers. It's like, I feel like I was watching the Steelers with just different names. And I will say this too. If you were building a quarterback today, And Peter Schrager talked about this. Schrager came on earlier and talked about Josh Allen. Here's Peter Schrager earlier on Josh Allen, quarterback.
This Josh Allen, he has had his moments where you wonder, all right, can I trust this guy? In the last month or so, I'm done questioning it. He is as good as any other quarterback under 30 outside of Mahomes. I would take Josh Allen over Deshaun Watson. I would take Josh Allen over Kyler Murray. I would take Josh Allen over Joe Burrow right now if I'm building a team. He is that dialed in, and he's had the experiences of 2 years, ups and downs, where you feel like he's fully blossoming. I love watching this kid throw the ball, and I love watching him lead his team. They really believe in him. Colin, the Chiefs are the best team in the AFC and the NFL right now. The Bills might be a close second.
By the way, 13 years ago, Big Ben was in his 4th year. And they kind of did some babysitting. You recall, first couple of years, it was run game, it was defense. And by about year 4, it was Ben's team. Josh Allen, year 3. A little babysitting first couple of years. You watched last night and last week. It's Josh Allen's team. Any throw. So, I mean, it feels like the Steelers. By the way, if you were building a quarterback today, ideally, this sounds stupid, but you'd want somebody that's tall. So you'd probably go 6'4.5", 6'5.5". You'd want somebody that was big and could take hits. But usually with tall, you get immobile, clunky. You get mobile. You'd want big arm, especially cold weather quarterbacks. Big Ben, Flacco, Josh Allen. Brady throws a very good cold weather football. You would not build Kyler Murray. You would not build Russell Wilson. You would not build Aaron Rodgers, who's like 6'1.5", 6'2". You would build this. 6'5", big arm, mobile, coachable, and what's always the key? Overlooked in high school and college. Just got a little chip on his shoulder. Overlooked. Nobody. He can run over you. He can run past you. He can throw it in front of you. He can throw it over you. He is just. I love these stories. We have so many amazing. Mahomes is obviously, if you can take a quarterback, you take Mahomes.
Right.
Dad played Major League Baseball, there's stuff, but you get to that second list, and it's like, I get into that Herbert, Josh Allen, where you're like, that ball just cuts through anything.
I love that they've stuck with him and developed him.
Yes. People bail on quarterbacks. They just stuck with
so
him.
quickly.
Discovery Plus, next year, new streaming service, has exclusive originals and many of the shows you like. The Food Network HGTV. It's called Discovery Plus, a new streaming service coming next year. Hour 3 on a Monday flying by.
Hey guys, it's Jake Brennan, host of Disgraceland. I want to tell you about a new podcast that I think you're going to love. It's called About a Girl. It tells the stories of the women behind the musical legends, the ones who inspired, supported, and challenged them on their way to greatness. Each episode, host Eleanor Wells will give voice to one of these influential women who helped chart the course of musical history. About a Girl comes to you from Double Elvis in partnership with iHeartRadio and is executive produced by me, Jake Brennan. Listen to About a Girl on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I created the podcast Prodigy to find the answer to a question. Can genius be created? Many believe it can, because it's happened before. Was it a coincidence, or is it repeatable? In pursuit of the answer, I interviewed brilliant academics, social scientists, groundbreaking researchers, and the prodigies themselves to gain a better understanding of intelligence. Skill acquisition, expert performance, and genetics. Disregard all simple explanations, because complex questions require complex answers. My name is Lowell Berlanti, and I'm seeking the answer to a very complicated question. What is the nature of our intelligence? Listen to Prodigy every Thursday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Are you a music fan?
Do you need more music talk in your life?
Then you should be listening to Record Store Society, a music talk show podcast on the iHeartRadio network.
Record Store Society is a virtual trip to your local record store, hosted by me, Tara Davies.
And me, Seth Nicholas Johnson.
Every Friday, you'll find Seth and I behind the counter at your favorite record store, dispensing recommendations, making lists, and talking to our customers about anything and everything music-related.
So listen to Record Store Society on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
At the right time, the right story can work magic. And right now, we could all use a boost. I'm actor Anupam Kher, and on my new podcast, Anupam Cares, I will share stories with you from my life, from growing up in the Himalayan foothills to acting in over 500 Bollywood films. I will also be bringing you stories of untold heroes from around the world to lift our spirits and remind us that anything can happen. Find Anupam Cares on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Hurt Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Hurt at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app. Searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Saturday with a spot in the college football playoff potentially up for grabs. This Big Ten's best battle for the conference crown. Number 14 Northwestern takes on Justin Fields, and number 4 Ohio State in the 2020 Big Ten Championship presented by Discover. It all starts with a big noon kickoff pregame show live on site from Indianapolis, followed by the Big Ten Championship at noon Eastern, only on Fox.
Well, Ohio State's flaw or vulnerability is their defense, so if Northwestern can move the ball, it's competitive. Northwestern's the better story, the small private academic power. Ohio State's the better team, so I'll take Ohio State by about 14 points. Tony Gonzalez played in the NFL for 17 years, 14 of those. He was a Pro Bowler. He's arguably the greatest tight end of all time. By the way, in yards, this has always been a shocking stat to me. Third most receptions in NFL history behind Jerry Rice and Larry Fitzgerald. A tight end. He must have been good. Let's talk to him. Tony Gonzalez, Fox Sports NFL analyst. Yeah, that's a first ballot Hall of Famer. You must have been pretty good, man. I wish I would have seen you play. All right. Let's start with this. So, the Browns are playing a massive game. It's a losing franchise. It's Monday Night Football. It's a standalone game. So, Tony, I want you to go back to your career. Do standalone games, do they feel different? Did you feel different? Was there more anxiety? I'm the Cleveland Browns tonight. Baltimore's in these games all the time. I'm Cleveland. What are they doing at the hotel today? What's it feel like?
You know what? And they're lying if they say it's just a regular week. We're going to prepare like we prepared all season long. Baloney, okay? Because this is the biggest game of the season for them. This is the chance for them to say, hey, we've had success. We finally beat a really good team last week. Now can we beat another really good team in front of everybody? Everybody's going to be watching. Everybody's going to be critiquing. You feel that tightness, right? In your the butt gets a little tight. the muscles get a little tight. But this is when the stars show up. This is when we see who you really are, what you're really made of, and what you're going to be. This is December football. I'm excited to watch this game. I'm excited to see what Baker Mayfield is going to do. Obviously, I think he's the key to that team. I think every quarterback is the key to their team's success. I want to see those running backs get loose today because I think Cleveland's a really good football team. But let's see how you handle the success. How do you handle the lights? This is the hallmark of greatness. What any great player, a great company, or great anything is consistency. You got to have consistency, and let's see you guys put it back week to week.
So, listen. Sometimes in the league, they call it identity or personality. That most great teams really have an identity. And why do you need an identity? Even in a basketball team. So when you get into crisis, you know what you are. If you're writing a script for a movie, they always say that you should name the movie before you write it. So in the middle of the movie, you've got an open and a close, and you're trying to connect the story arcs in the middle. You go back to the title of the movie. What is the movie? What are we trying to say here? And so having an identity matters. And I watched Tampa yesterday, and Tony, they just feel like a collection of really good players. I don't know what they are. That's what I see. What do you see?
Well, thinking of movie titles for them, I'm going to go with the old cliche movie for the good, the bad, and the ugly, because that's what you kind of seen about them so far this year. Even after that bye week, I was a little disappointed. I thought they were going to come out and be more consistent with the running game, and they tried. They got a little bit better. Tom looked a little bit better on his deep ball. I'm glad Fournette, they sat him down a healthy scratch because they said it. Coach Wanstead said it on our show, and I love his analogy of the buffet. They got so much talent, like you said, but I think they're getting confused. They're that person standing in line looking at the cream corn, or should I go with the cream corn? Should I go with the lasagna? Should I go with the pizza? Should I go with the rack of lamb? You don't know what to go with. But I do think that they are trending in a better direction than what it was before the bye week. And the defense played better. They're still a dangerous football team because they do have all that talent, though. So I don't think people are really going to want to play them because if you get that great version of them, that simplified, condensed version of them, they could be a Super Bowl caliber team.
Go back to the best team you ever played on, and I asked Dilfer this an hour ago because he played on that great Ravens team that won the Super Bowl. And listen, when you're in the league long enough and you play on a great team, Tony, you know who can play and who can't, especially in your division when you play them twice a year. And so Kansas City, last 5 weeks, hasn't covered the spread any. Why? Because even the professionals are saying this is what they should win by, and they're not. Their defense isn't as tight. They're a little sloppier. And I think to myself, well, it's just like in life. If you know you can do certain things, you don't play with urgency. So you go to the best team you ever played with. Did you ever have a point, maybe, week 9 to week 13, where it is hard to go in as a big favorite every week and lay it down?
Yeah, it does, and that's the nature of the beast. I think there's only one team that we can look at in the history where it doesn't matter if they're playing a weak team or a great team. You're always going to get that same level of competitiveness, and that's the New England Patriots. I mean, Belichick is the best at doing that. Most teams, your success goes up and down. Well, your level of performance, I couldn't stand it. I mean, that's how it is. The majority of the team, you're going to get 20% of the guys that are going to bring it week in and week out. It doesn't matter if they're playing, but then you're going to get the front runners. I think that's what's going on kind of with the Steelers at some point. Like, you're messing around too much. You're like, hey, let's get after it. Let's be that great team week in and week out. The Kansas City Chiefs are certainly there. They are so talented. They are so good that I think they get bored almost at times. It's like, hey, the second quarter, let's go out and score 21 points on average. They can do that. It's tough. It's tough for them to do it. Sorry, my dog. Hey, chicken. Sorry. My dog is going nuts. I think she likes the show. Sorry.
It's okay. By the way, this happens about once a week on the show. So do you have to close the door or something with your dog? Where's he at?
No, I'm going to let the dog out.
All right. Hold on. Take your time. It's no big deal.
I'm right here.
Dogs love us.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Live TV.
Yeah, and hey, listen, it's Mark Schlereth does this every other time he's on. We totally get this. So I was watching the Steelers last night, Tony, and I'm like, it's the old, like they're the old boxer, and you respect him, but it's Larry Holmes at the end. Like you're just like they're just not. And the Steelers remind me this year of the Patriots last year. They had a good record, but you were watching them and you're like, man, they're not real dynamic. And then last year the Patriots played the Ravens on Sunday Night Football with Lamar Jackson, and the Patriots look so slow. And I watched the Steelers last night, and I respect their brand and their coach and their quarterback. And then you watch them against Josh Allen, and they look like you haven't updated your phone. They look so old. And I respect the Steelers, but I mean, when you watched that game last night, it doesn't look like they're the future of the AFC, right?
They looked. It seems like they got exposed, and it started last week when they lost. The running game. You're not going to win in the NFL if you don't have a running game. And I thought that they would be able to throw that quick pass, to get the ball out of his hands real quick, Big Ben's hands. He was the quickest quarterback in the NFL this year getting the ball out of his hands. But you better be able to pick up 3 or 4 yards a carry if you're going to make a Super Bowl run. That is a huge flaw. And then on top of that, all the drop balls that they've been having. That's part of that. I still think they're that young, somewhat immature receiving core where they're doing the TikToks, they're doing all the social media stuff. And maybe call me old school, but I'm like, hey, let's concentrate. Let's catch the ball before we have fun. Let's not have fun first and then go have success. Let's have some success and then go have fun. Let's be consistent with it. Because any lack of focus, especially at this time of year, they're getting exposed right now. That's all you have to do is stop the run, which every team is doing. And Big Ben, he's having trouble getting the ball out of his hands. And then the guys drop balls. The only thing I can say to saving grace for them, though, is that they have a really, really good defense. And hopefully Ben can get those guys to start to focus and come up with some type of a semblance of a running game. Because right now it's pathetic almost.
Yeah, no, it is weird because when you think of Pittsburgh, I think of physical. And you watch them and you're like, they're the least physical offensive line in the league, and they've got players, but it's just not working. All right, Tony Gonzalez, Fox Sports NFL analyst, and a dog. By the way, just like your career, you were very quick to pivot, solve a problem, and get it done. That's why you're very good.
That's what we do. And by the way, my mom was watching earlier. Apparently you like oatmeal raisin cookies.
Love them.
Love them. So, I don't know if you know this, but the cookies in our green room, they have oatmeal chocolate chip cookies. Brad Zager turned me on to this yesterday. Go get one of those. Trust me.
Okay.
Oatmeal raisin is good, but oatmeal chocolate chip, I think might even be better.
I appreciate that. Thanks, buddy.
Just advice.
Okay. Here to help. That's all we're doing here.
Yeah.
Contact World is a technology and media company dedicated to improving public health because we're fed up with the way our country has ignored public health for so long. Those days are over. And our podcast is our opportunity to dive into hot topics that are relevant to your life, from contact tracing to vaccines to social and racial justice. We may not have all the answers, but you deserve to know what goes on in your neighborhood and the decisions that affect you and your family's health. I'm Justin Beck. Join me and my co-hosts Catherine and Deepti as we seek truth in health. Contact World's podcast is the voice of the people and your opportunity to improve public health and health equity. So subscribe to Contact World and tell your friends, because we all deserve the right information, not misinformation. Visit contact.world to learn more. Listen to Contact World, the podcast, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
In the summer and autumn of 2020, the city of Portland, Oregon became the center of a vast media blitz. Thousands of viral videos showing marching federal agents and police officers tear gas, black-clad anarchists and fires went viral all over the internet. What didn't go viral was the truth, because the story of Portland's Black Lives Matter movement and of the Portland protests of 2020 is so much stranger than I think the mainstream media would ever be willing to cover. I was there, and more importantly, the people that I talked to for my new show, Uprising, A Guide from Portland, were there. Through their experiences, you'll learn the truth, both about Portland and about what's coming for the rest of the United States in the next few years. Listen to Uprising, A Guide from Portland on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
There's a new streaming service. It's called Discovery Plus. Collection of real-life stuff you've seen before, like Food Network Plus, exclusive originals, U.S. only. Debuting early next year. Joy Taylor with the news.
Herd on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Tony's mom is the best.
Tony's what?
Tony's mom. Tony has great women in his life. His wife is amazing. October.
Isn't that a great name? October.
It is. She's great.
And then Tony's mom. How do you know Tony's mom?
I met her. They were in the airport like last year. But she watches the show. Obviously, she saw that she liked oatmeal raisin cookies. Awesome.
You know a lot of people that I'm always amazed at.
I actually do know a lot of people.
You really know a lot of
I'm a very low-key person, you know. When you get a text, you're like, I have someone very important texting me.
You're
I'm
low-key.
low-key with it. So, the Ravens and Browns face off in a huge divisional matchup tonight.
Browns now getting 3.
I can't wait for this. I can't wait for this mostly because I can't wait for the reaction if Cleveland loses.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you right now, Cleveland. I'll allow you to lose. No, 28-26, division rival, play your arse off and you lose. If you roll over tonight and it's a bunch of chatter and you get exposed, I'm gonna be relentless tomorrow. Because I am the surrogate mayor of Cleveland, beloved in Ohio, and I've supported you. And I even saying tonight, you do not have to win tonight. But you gotta compete. You can't do a New York Giants yesterday against Arizona, which was embarrassing.
Yeah, that was bad. I disagree. I feel like if they lose, I'm going to be all over them. Steelers opened the door. The AFC North is up for grabs.
By the way, it is.
You can't lose to the Ravens if that's what you're putting out there.
At home?
Cleveland must win this game tonight.
All right.
But the way that Baltimore's been playing this year, if Baltimore loses, I won't be surprised. It's just down year for Baltimore.
It's perfect.
They're starting to do a little bit of that chitter chatter.
Yep.
Steelers lost last night. You better go out there and beat Baltimore. Now remember, Baltimore blew Cleveland out 38-6 when they met in Week 1. Obviously, Cleveland is a very different team now.
It's actually an advantage. There's another advantage. For Cleveland. It's hard to beat a team 38-6. Play them again when everybody in that roster...
I feel like they're both very different teams.
Oh, no, they are. Totally.
So they're favored by 3 points tonight. Baltimore is according to Fox Bet. But they'll be facing, obviously, a team that's won their 5th straight. And remember in the first matchup, Baker had his second lowest completion percentage of the year. Browns only completed 3 of their 12 third down conversions.
Okay, let's be fair though. Wasn't that the first week of the year?
Yeah.
Okay, Kevin Stefanski against John Harbaugh's staff, no preseason. I don't even count that game. Kevin
Stefanski said they didn't even go back and watch it.
What's the point?
You're not going to learn anything from it.
Okay, so start Stefanski about week 4. It's like Joe Judge.
Yeah.
Week 4, Brian Flores last year. I'll give you 3 games. Figure it out. Week 4, then I'm going to start judging you.
Really, the only teams we didn't do that for that we probably should have
Dallas
was Dallas and the Bucs.
Yeah, Dallas is playing better now. In fairness, the last 4 weeks
they
played well.
I'm saying we didn't give them that preseason space to develop. So Katie and Kyrie are back. Brooklyn is going to be an exciting story this year, and Kyrie spoke to the media for the first time this morning. He addressed his Instagram post from last week where he said he wouldn't talk to pawns, and he also backtracked his prior comments about the team not having a head coach.
Like I said, the focus is on what's going on in the task here, my job. And I wanted to make sure that was clear. No distractions, nothing about dispelling anything, nothing about going back and forth, nothing about calling out one person or another, not even refer to you guys as pawns, you know what I mean, or media. It's just really how I felt about the mistreatment of certain artists when we get to a certain platform of when we make decisions within our lives to have full control. Ownership there, and then you got a 2-time MVP coaching you, man. I'm like, I think I got to take back my comments in terms of head coach back a few months ago.
Well, the second part, I fully agree with, and that is the right thing to say. They need a head coach, and because it's not just about Katie and Kyrie, you have an entire team of guys that want to be coached and need to come together. This is a new team now because even though they were a team that had a good culture and did well in the bubble, you didn't have KD and Kyrie to work into the lineup, and those are two significant pieces.
Hey, by the way, who did they pick up in the offseason? I don't know why I'm struggling with it. Landry Shamet, where's he? He's not on this team, is he?
Where did Landry Shamet go?
Where did he go?
Well, look, they brought back pretty much all of their pieces from last year that were in the bubble. And remember, a lot of players didn't go to the bubble as well. Yeah, he is with the Nets.
Okay,
yeah.
So that's. I know nobody wants to talk about that. That's a legitimate bench player who can score. So I know we're all getting caught up in this, but Kyrie's not going to give you 82 games, and Kevin Durant probably doesn't. So.
But they're going to have less games this season.
I know. It actually that plays into their hand. I'd rather they play less. I was not as high on them as you, but to get that deal with the Clippers, it makes them more formidable. It's like a third guy that I know can hit shots.
Well, I'm only high on them because I feel like everyone's forgotten how great of a player Kevin Durant is, and they're adding in that he's not going to come back from this Achilles injury the same. Like even if he came back 90% of what Kevin Durant is,
24 and a half a night. That's good.
I mean, I felt like he was the best player in the NBA before he got injured. Even with LeBron there. Like, he was playing the best.
He's the best, most reliable scorer. Need a bucket, Kevin Durant's the best in the
I think Brooklyn is a great story this year. So, we have some college football news. Washington was set to play USC in the Pac-12 championship game, but they had to withdraw because they are not going to have the minimum number of scholarship players available to play because of COVID. So, Oregon will now take Washington's place and represent the North Division for the Pac-12 title Friday on Fox. Oregon gets the nod to replace Washington as the team with the next best record in the Pac-12 North. Oregon and Stanford are currently tied for second place with a 3-2 record, but the Ducks win the tiebreakers as a result of their head-to-head in the first week of Pac-12 play.
So it's interesting because USC is a really good at quarterback with excellent receivers, and they only win one way, crazy shootouts. They're not a great team, but they have good momentum. USC is a blast to watch. They have
that game this weekend was
they have great receivers and a great quarterback, and they do a pretty good job of protecting him. Defense their front seven is pretty Spartan. Oregon's 3-2. They're rebuilding their own line. I think they lost 3 starters to the NFL. Oregon's going to be really good in a year. So this game has a chance to be a circus with a ton of points. Oregon's about a year away. I think USC offensively is excellent, but is not good enough defensively to compete with great teams. Meaning even if USC scores 30, they can't stop anybody. They've had opt-outs and injuries. I think Washington was a better matchup for USC because Washington they don't have the receivers. The quarterback's a freshman. This is not great for USC. I like Oregon to beat USC. I'd like USC to beat Washington. I've only watched 2 Oregon games, so I'd love to see the number on this. Goulet, do we know the number on this game?
Hasn't been officially posted yet because
this
just
news
came out,
just happened.
but people are projecting probably USC -1. Maybe
Yeah, okay.
Right around there.
I'll kind of agree with you there.
Yeah, it's Oregon's a year away. They got a young quarterback and a young O-line, but if you look at Oregon's 2 deeps, they're going to return a lot of good players, and they've recruited the hell out of that program for the last 2 or 3 years. Mario Cristobal can recruit.
Yeah.
Are we done?
Yes.
I'll enjoy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line News.
I got into my Pac-12 stuff. You know, I almost did 4 or 5 years ago a huge Pac-12 website. I was investing in it. I was going to start it, and I just thought, what are you doing? You're already the busiest guy in the world. Stop doing this nonsense. You got a new show at Fox. You got an afternoon show. You got a Sunday show.
But you were going to, write?
This would be my pet project. Not going to make any money on it.
Your passion project?
Yeah, this is it. This is just fun.
So you're going to be a Pac-12 writer?
Yeah. And just do my own stuff. Scoops and sources and stuff. I could sit and watch it and talk it all day. I know it's not nationally relevant, but I could just sit and watch it all day. It's what I grew up with. Everybody's got something, like every sportscaster has something they can't talk about on the air, but they love it. What's yours?
I mean, probably underground, grassroots basketball. I work it in every once in a while.
Okay, and mine's Pac-12 football.
Yeah.
All right, 3-word game, best for last. Every NFL game wrapped up in 3 words next.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
Do you ever think about how you're gonna die? I think I'm going to choke to death, specifically on a Cool Ranch know. I'm definitely slipping in the shower. I'm for sure gonna die taking a selfie. Anyway.
Hey, I'm Gabby.
I'm Taylor.
I'm Nika.
And we're the hosts of a new podcast called
Cadaver Gals. We're just three fun and flirty gals talking about all the fun and flirty ways that people expire.
Like how 3 people died because of a poodle.
And how you shouldn't trust your ex-boyfriend to help you get rid of a body.
We'll also find out about all of Nika's boyfriends.
That is untrue, and we will find out that Taylor's a horse girl. And Gabby is...
the best one.
Okay, Gabby. Basically, this podcast is kind of like Sex and the City if they only talked about dead people. Join us as we laugh, but mostly cry, in the face of death. We'll also learn how to grow as people through the power of friendship.
So listen to Cadaver Gals for your weekly dose of chaos.
Cadaver Gals is a production of School of Humans and iHeartRadio. New episodes out on Wednesdays.
Listen to Cadaver Gals on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
My name is Jamie Loftus, host of shows like My Year in Mensa and The Bechtelcast. I'm here to tell you about my new show, Lolita Podcast. Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov is one of the most controversial works in American history. The story and its main character have been adapted, misinterpreted, and twisted over the years by Hollywood, by fashion, by fans of the book, and by the author himself. Lolita has gone from the tragic story of an abused 13-year-old girl to a cultural narrative that frames her as the seductress and to blame. So how did this all happen? It's a messy story. This is a story about a girl named Dolores, and I think she's gotten lost over the years. I'll be speaking with literary scholars, with experts on abuse, and with the actors who have played the part of Lolita and more. So let's get to the bottom of it, for her. New episodes drop weekly on Mondays. Listen to Lolita Podcast. On the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's called the 3-word game. Describe every NFL game succinctly forces us to burrow down to the truth about every NFL game. Are we ready, John? All right, here we go.
Vikings at Buccaneers.
Looked the same. Bucs had the least time of possession of any team in Week 14. If Dan Bailey didn't miss 3 field goals and an extra point, I think it had a different outcome. I still don't know what Tampa's identity is. I thought they were awful in the first quarter. Look the same.
Cardinals at Giants.
Run, Kyler, run. Cardinals are 8-0 when Kyler has 10-plus carries in his career, and because of an injury, he stopped running. Well, yesterday, he went back to running. 13 carries, 47 rushing yards. That's the most rushing yards since Week 10, and it absolutely frustrated a very good... You see it right there. It drove the Giants nuts. When he runs, they're a tough out.
Broncos at Panthers.
Best bad game. Drew Lock, career-high 4 touchdown passes. No picks for the first time since Week 2. Didn't mean much, but Drew Lock had a real football game.
Chiefs at Dolphins.
Way Tua close. Come on. 5 straight wins by 1 possession. Chiefs outscored 17-3 in the fourth quarter. Chiefs with a season-high 4 turnovers. Listen, Miami is exceptionally well coached. This is a great catch in the end zone. But, I mean, Miami was missing their top 3 running backs, Kyle Van Noy. Three rookies in the O-line. Devontae Parker didn't play in the second half. No way the best team in football should let Miami back in this thing.
Titans at Jaguars.
A predictable blowout. We called this one on Friday. Jags now in a 12-game losing streak. Derrick Henry, 4th career game with 200 rushing yards. Here's the reality with Tennessee. Good teams that get blown out. Titans last week always bounce back the following week. And the Titans did.
Cowboys at Bengals.
Andy was dandy. Dalton, a season-high 122 passer rating. Andy, 2 touchdowns, no picks. I didn't watch a ton of this game, but this is where Andy Dalton played. They kind of gave up on him, and I understood it was time to reboot. Everybody bangs on Dalton, but I've said this, he's not Dak. But if you give Andy a little time to throw, the one thing I think he does as good as Dak or better, he throws a very accurate, tight, intermediate ball. He didn't have a huge arm. He's not as good as Dak as an athlete, but if you have to just throw intermediate balls 17 yards in, Andy Dalton with time to throw is real good.
Texans at Bears.
Don't be fooled. I know, the Bears had a season-high 36 points. Trubisky was amazing. Texans have the 2nd worst defense in NFL to the Jaguars. By the way, the first play of the game, Bears scored an 80-yard touchdown. Texans weren't ready to play.
Jets at Seahawks.
Worst team ever? The Jets scored 3 points on the opening drive and then surrendered the next 40 points. 16 straight games where the Jets' opponents have passed for more yards than the Jets with Darnold or Joe. Flacco.
Colts and Raiders.
Physical versus finesse. Wow. Jonathan Taylor had 150 yards. He's the rookie from Wisconsin. We loved him. They love him. Raiders 10 turnovers in the last 3 games. This one was one of those NFL games. If you bet it, you knew 10 minutes in. If you had the Raiders, you were on the wrong side. And if you had the Colts, you knew it was going to be a good day. By the way, that kid, is that Kenny Moore? He is good. All those draft picks from Chris Ballard are starting to pay off and pay off early.
Washington at 49ers.
Coach of year, Ron Rivera, 4 straight wins. 6 wins this year, doubles the win total last year. He's got cancer. Alex Smith got hurt yesterday, and Antonio Gibson did not play. If you look at the obstacles, the chaos at quarterback, the Dwayne Haskins decision, it was a rough September, October, but this is what Rivera did in Carolina. It's an organization that didn't have an identity. He makes your defense really good. That's one thing about Cam. For the Cam defenders, Cam usually had a top 10 defense with Rivera. Whoever quarterbacks Washington is going to have a really good defensive scheme.
Falcons and Chargers.
INT. 2 punts, 3 picks in the fourth quarter. Nobody gives up wins like Atlanta. My bad, except for the Chargers. This thing was a mess. It was Atlanta and Atlanta South. You just can't. Matt Ryan and Justin Herbert were good. It was just 2 teams giving this puppy away. It was so chaotic and so absolutely predictable.
Saints and Eagles.
Man. That hurts. Saints lose the number 1 seed in the NFC. Jalen Hurts had 106 rushing yards. For the record, Taysom Hill's good. But did you notice this? 3 of the Saints' 4 low-scoring games are with Taysom Hill. So again, unique can win, but now everybody's got a little film on Taysom Hill, and suddenly the points are harder to get.
Packers and Lions.
Easy for cheesy. I love that. I know it's bad. Goulet, give me a break. I'm up here for 3 hours doing hockey scores, okay? Packers now currently the number 1 seed. This was one of these games, it was close. You never felt Green Bay would lose. I never felt for a second Green Bay would lose. Aaron Rodgers in the last 3 weeks, 10 TDs, 0 picks, total harmony with Matt LaFleur. The one thing I liked about this game, Detroit couldn't run the football. And Detroit was held to 51 rushing yards, so that was more than just a win for Green Bay. They played very good against the run, which is going to really matter in the postseason.
Steelers and Bills.
Told you so. Being kind of a jerk. The Bills are a Hail Mary away from being 7-0 in their last 7 games, and they so remind me of the Pittsburgh Steelers 13 years ago. Ben was in his 4th year. Josh Allen's in his 3rd. They had a defensive head coach from William & Mary. They had a smart coordinator, Bruce Arians with Ben, and Brian Daboll with Josh Allen. Northeast, proud, cold weather franchise. Steelers, Bills been to a lot of Super Bowls. One team's won them all. Other teams lost a lot of them. But, boy, Pittsburgh is isn't it weird? If I'd have told you there's one team in the NFL will not be able to run the ball, you'd never think the Steelers. I think of all the great Steeler teams, the defenses, Terry Bradshaw, Big Ben, they can always run the ball. Last couple of years, Le'Veon Bell left. Cannot run the ball since he left. Can't run the ball. Doesn't matter. They've had Pro Bowl offensive linemen. They've had tight ends that can block. They cannot run the football since Le'Veon Bell left.
It's a big problem.
Streaming service coming next year, Discovery Plus. All the shows you love from your favorite brands like the Food Network. All right, by the way, after Monday's shows, I go upstairs and I do this thing for Fox Bet. I do like 30 minutes with Carissa and McIntyre. So if you want to watch that, this is a very good week. And this is the 3rd time this year. The lines are really good this week. These are good lines. You have weeks when you look up and you're like, you see nothing. I see 4 games right now.
Saints one of those games?
Saints are getting 4 at home. Really? Really? You're going to give the Saints, the Saints 4 at home? I don't care what happens, that's the side you bet. They didn't suddenly become a bad team. They were the number one seed 24 hours ago. Now at home against the Chiefs team that's kind of choppy, we'll see tomorrow.
You've probably heard a lot about Portland on the news, about the tear gas and the federal agents with snatch vans and the anarchy. What you probably haven't heard is the truth, because the reality of what happened in Portland is so much stranger, so much more incredible than what the mainstream media was willing to show. I'm Robert Evans, and along with all of the other voices on my podcast, Uprising, A Guide from Portland, I was there. Listen to Uprising, A Guide from Portland on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
I created the podcast Prodigy to find the answer to a question. Can genius be created? Many believe it can, because it's happened before. Was it a coincidence, or is it repeatable? In pursuit of the answer, I interviewed brilliant academics, social scientists, groundbreaking researchers, and the prodigies themselves to gain a better understanding of intelligence, skill acquisition, expert performance, and genetics. Disregard all simple explanations, because complex questions require complex answers. My name is Lowell Berlanti, and I'm seeking the answer to a very complicated question. What is the nature of our intelligence? Listen to Prodigy every Thursday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever